Let's move on to the next question. I'll ask Ms. Plaskett to respond first. The Expiring Provisions Improvement, Reform, and Efficiency Act of 2014, known as the Expire Act, extends the $13.25 Virgin Islands rum cover-over rate. Since Congress must approve the final $2.75 every 2 years, what specific action will you take to help to avoid the financial uncertainty of this fund?
I think that's an excellent question, and one that is already a part of my 7-point plan. One of the things that I think that we have allowed ourselves to go into is a precarious situation in which many of the programs that make up most of our general fund are in fact things that we need to go to Congress for on an every year or sometimes every 2-year basis. We have an EDC program that in 2008 was decimated with the jobs, not only in 2004 with the Jobs Act, but in 2008 with the Great Recession, which caused our EDC program to lose almost $200 million in terms of our general fund, the taxes that were coming in to the territory because of that. And the rum cover-over is another issue. I would fight for a permanency within the rum cover-over so that we are not looking at extenders every year to determine whether or not we are going to have that money to satisfy the bonds that are already obligated to that money, as well as to the future growth of our territory, to which we are looking for the rum cover-over for that. I also would look very much into trying to find additional funding, and in terms of our Veterans Affairs, there are so many areas in which we are in a precarious situation. Our Veterans Affairs, our veterans do not have security in terms of the federal government and what's being offered to them. Our voting rights as well are something that we need to fight much more aggressively and be vigilant in determining that we not only have a vote on the floor, but a vote in for our President of the United States, as well as not only the rum cover-over, looking at the gasoline excise tax, which the Supreme Court said had to be determined by Congress. Things that are not necessarily convenient are no reason for me as your delegate to go after them, and I intend to do so if elected as the next delegate to Congress.
Mr. Dennett?
Let's get real. We have to go after and maintain a relationship to keep these programs going. We can't lapse at any time. But at the same time, we need to recognize where this territory gets its money from. From the private sector, the lion's share. From the federal government, roughly 18 to 20%. And from borrowing. So we need to go ahead and come up with an economic plan that nurtures a private sector. So if we fall short on getting programs like the rum cover-over taken care of, we go ahead and we are able to take care of our own general fund via turning the private sector loose. Okay, that's what we got to do. We have to set up the private sector to make things go. We can't sit down and do things like, for instance, oppose private sector programs here, like the whole Malone Act. We had problems with the Malone Amendment, and that was a private industry stifling measure. So it's time to cut the private sector loose and at the same time stay on the programs in the federal government to keep the monies flowing our way.
Okay, so let me be sure I understood your response then, Mr. Dennett. What would you be willing to do to help to avoid the financial uncertainty of this fund, because we have to go to Congress every 2 years?
We have to go ahead and we have to take our economy to the next level so that if we don't get that money, that we are comfortable in the fact that we have a strong economy that can fill the general fund where we don't have to worry about it if we make those errors.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I repeatedly have heard my opponent discuss the fact that we only have 18% of federal funding from the government and that we need not go to the federal government for additional funding. We as the Virgin Islands have much less federal funds coming into this territory than other sectors. You have places like, this is by far the lowest. The lowest state that is receiving federal funds is one that's receiving 20%. And there are states that are receiving as much as 43% of the revenues coming into their territory, into their jurisdictions from the federal government. I am very in favor of increasing public-private partnerships to increase the growth of our private sector, using things such as new market tax credits, federal incentives to bring tax credits as well as funding to grow our infrastructure as well as businesses. But I do understand that we need to be receiving from the federal government our fair share of what needs to be coming into this territory at this time.
One final rebuttal.
Nothing wrong with getting our fair share, but we need to remember the federal government is borrowing 40 cents of every dollar that it takes in, and it's printing money, which is all not good. It's not sustainable. So what do we do as a territory if that funding source dries up? We need to sit down and come up with our own way of generating money by bringing corporations here, bringing companies here to generate taxpayers, to generate entrepreneurs. We cannot just rely, we'll go after the money we need to go after from the feds as long as it's there, but we need to know that the policies that are in place right now are uncertain, and we need to plan for that.
Okay, thank you. I think we've exhausted that subject. Moving on to Mr. Dennett first and then Ms. Plaskett. Since our islands have limited resources, what should be done about the immigration and border protection issues which are out of the control of the territorial government?
We're in a unique position as a territory. Outside the customs circle, for customs purposes, we are considered foreign. For immigration purposes, we're considered domestic. We can use that unique status to take advantage of what's called inversion. We just had Burger King leave the U.S. because the U.S. has the highest corporate tax rate. We can go ahead, and it's been called companies leaving the country because it's economically unpatriotic. It'll be economically patriotic if these companies come to the Virgin Islands, set up shop here, where we're considered foreign. We would give them favorable tax rates, and at the same time, they're still domestic, so they can't be considered unpatriotic. It's time for us to build an economic base here to generate prosperity, and we need to set it up and let government get out of the way and let these people fill the general fund with taxpayers. Right now, we are strangling St. Croix, we're strangling St. Thomas with issues like the LEAC, with other sorts of issues that are just generating bad economic decisions for everybody.
Okay. So just to be clear, your response is that that we should attract private enterprise to provide the resources that are necessary for immigration and custom border protection issues?
We need to attract them here because prosperity generates security. And then now we don't have the problem of U.S. Customs and Border Patrol saying they don't have the resources to handle their problem, which is their number one concern right now. They don't have the resources, manpower, personnel. If we have a strong economy, we will have enough of a general fund to fund that and to also allow the federal government to assist us with solving all of these problems. Again, the government is not the end-all, be-all answer. We need to cultivate the private industry to make ourselves economically strong so we have better status when we go ask for help in the Congress.
Thank you, Mr. Dennett. Ms. Plaskett, I'll pose that same question to you.
Yes. I don't think that growing our economy is the reason that we don't have sufficient customs and border protection here in the Virgin Islands. I think it's that we need to be more aggressive in allowing Washington to see the importance of immigration here in this territory. So I would be in favor of ensuring that we are receiving the proper coastal zones in terms of our the Coast Guard patrolling our borders, and not just in terms of immigration, but particularly in terms of crime, because of drug trafficking and gun trafficking that goes on here in the territory. Additionally, I would be in favor of relaxation in terms of our visas between the Eastern Caribbean and the Virgin Islands, for medical visas, for short tourist visas, as well as for student visas. That also can grow our economy here in the territory if there was a relaxation, which is possible at the Senate, in the Senate as well as in the House of Representatives, to ensure that the laws allow that. So those are the things that I would be working on.
Thank you.
Well, right now we have a problem with the C1D visas that are a main focus here for Customs and Border Protection. All of the commerce that comes to us are from employees that have C1D visas. But right now we've been asleep at the wheel, and those visas are expired, and all of that commerce has to go foreign before it comes back to us, and it's going to increase costs. You think the LEAC was a problem? Go ask your local border and CBP officer about what is happening with visas in the territory.
Thank you. Final rebuttal?
Again, the discussion that is being had here is really an apples and orange ones, because my opponent is talking about an economy, and I'm talking specifically about people. Allowing people to be able to come in and out of the territory, I think, is very important, and to making sure that there's a safety within the territory in terms of our Coast Guard, our patrolling our borders, and ensuring that our youth have safety in terms of guns and the drugs that are coming in through our territory.
Thank you.